uh, Onesiphorus was the kind of friend I treasure the people in my life who are like Onesiphorus, who refresh me, and who they're not ashamed of me and my weakness and my failings. You think about this. We're in 2 Timothy chapter 1, in verse 16, where Paul writes, "May the Lord show mercy to the household of Onesiphorus, because he often refreshed me and was not ashamed of my chains." We need people in our lives like Onesiphorus. Now, Paul was in chains. He was imprisoned. There were people who would have said, I mean, what evidence do you need? This guy's he's a failure. I mean, look what he set out to do, and where he is now. Big catalyst of the movement of God in the world. I mean, now he's like in the guts of a prison. That's failure. Well, I'm sure there were people who not only thought that of Paul, but they said it of him. Except for Onesiphorus, this situation was not a failure situation to him. It set him up to be able to offer refreshment, encouragement, hope to Paul. And then in verse 17, Paul goes on the contrary, when he was in Rome, he searched hard for me until he found me. That, Onesiphorus didn't just happen on to Paul in prison. He had a mission, and he searched hard for him. That, to me, what a picture of godly Christian affection Onesiphorus had for Paul. There's one quick thing I left out of verse 16, where Paul writes, and this is a prayer, really, "Lord, show mercy to the household of Onesiphorus." This is not just directed at Onesiphorus as an individual. This was to his entire household. And that word household there applies to everybody under his roof, his family, his domestic help. We don't know if odds are pretty favorable that he would have had slaves, his slaves. Everybody, okay, your and my effort toward refreshing God's people, the blessing of that goes beyond us. I don't want to make too much of it, but it's worth saying. Paul could have said, Lord, show mercy to Onesiphorus. And it would have ended there. But he didn't. He said, show mercy to the entire household of Onesiphorus. Why? Because of his generosity, his concern, his effort to refresh Paul. Now, one quick bunny trail. When you and I have this in our lifestyle, when you and I are disposed toward refreshing others, the people under our roof almost always are going to take note of it. Even the most self-absorbed teenager will, maybe not in those teenage years, but later in their life will realize, wow, mom or dad, or mom and dad, or my sister or my brother, my people under the roof, right? Man, they were generous. Well, our lives, what we do has effect on the people around us. Now, I don't here you can do this poorly, and I'm going to share what I think is poorly is if Onesiphorus would have said, household, family, I am going to sacrificially seek out Paul and refresh his soul. That's stupid. The picture I get of Onesiphorus is that he was a humble man, and it wasn't about a show. It was all about his heart. And the people under your roof, your household, are going to notice, they're affected by your attitudes, your motives, and your expressions. So, okay. And Paul says Onesiphorus was not ashamed of my chains. On the contrary, when he was in Rome, evidently Onesiphorus didn't live in Rome, but when he was there, he searched hard for me until he found me. In verse 18, may the Lord grant that he will find mercy from the Lord on that day. Mercy, it shows up a couple of times here. Mercy is, wow, I'm so grateful for God's mercy. Mercy is when I do not get what I deserved to get. When if it's, I'm not even going to go into the big spiel I have about the three primary themes of the Bible: justice, mercy, and grace. There is a big difference between justice and mercy and grace. Justice, getting what I deserve. Mercy, not getting what I deserve. And grace, getting what I don't deserve. Well, Paul offers a prayer. May the Lord grant that Onesiphorus will find mercy from the Lord on that day. What day? Well, on the one hand, every day. And on the other, that day would be the day of Christ's return. May the Lord grant that he'll find mercy from the Lord on that day. This is what a great prayer. What a great prayer to pray for someone or for anyone, but I think especially for people who you care for. I think it would be an appropriate prayer for everybody under your roof. And for friendships, for the people close to you, may they find mercy from the Lord. Well, then he goes on, you know very well in how many ways he helped me in Ephesus. Oh, ding, ding, ding. We get a little hint into who Onesiphorus was and where he was from. Now, remember, where was Timothy as Paul writes this letter? Well, Timothy had been commissioned by Paul and ordained into the role of the leader, the pastor of the church in Ephesus. And the impression left here is that Onesiphorus was part of that church family. Now, excuse me, we get the idea. I mean, Paul says it. He had helped him in many ways, while he was in Ephesus. And Paul was in Ephesus for a couple of years. It was not a short stay, it was a stay of longer term. In light of all the other places Paul went, stayed briefly, established a church, moved on to the next thing. Onesiphos, I think, had become, okay, I don't know that I can say he had become a close companion of Paul's. I don't know, but I do know this. Onesiphorus had become a friend who Paul could count on, right? Many ways he helped him. And here's the other part. Timothy would have been there observing Onesiphorus' lifestyle of helping, encouraging, providing. There's so much about Onesiphorus that is worthy of our emulation. Last time I talked about how if we intend to have Onesiphorus, this little tiny glimpse we get of him, if we want to imitate what we see here, it will take us out of our way. If you look on a map, if you got a print version Bible, you probably got a map in the back of it. If not, you should jump on the internet and type in New Testament travels of Paul, and it'll give you this big, a pretty good sized map of the eastern crescent of the Mediterranean Sea and the land around it. Ephesus is in what is today Turkey, and from Turkey to Rome is not a small trip even today. But in Paul's day, it would have been a big trip. I mean, you're going halfway across the known world to get from Ephesus to Rome. And for whatever reason, Onesiphorus made that trip. And I don't know that he went only to find Paul and encourage him and refresh him. Maybe he went on business. We don't know. He didn't go as a tourist. We can be sure of that. But he went. He had to go far out of his way to get to where Paul was. And I don't want to read into this more than is there, but I do think the principle is clear. If we want to incorporate into our lives, in our character, our nature, this kind of generosity, this kind of this kind of lifestyle, we'll have to be willing to go out of our way. And there are times when, if we're paying attention, as we go, that provides a moment, an opportunity to do more than just whatever the business is. If Onesiphorus was there on business, he didn't let the business get in the way of searching hard for Paul in prison. Don't let yourself get tunnel vision. And I'm preaching to me now. Where I'm going and what I'm doing, be careful that that's not going to hold your vision hostage, because there's probably something bigger that you could do while you're doing that. Well, okay. I'm going to move on to chapter 2. Holy smokes, are we moving on or what? I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.